Hello, my name is Matthew, and Steve Donoghue and I are reading Batman: The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller as a buddy read for the month of May. And this past week we read part two of The Dark Knight Returns. It's a great cover. And the cover panel for part two is just amazing. I'll show it to you. Such a great image. Batman really looks like he's been chewed up and spit out. And part two is great. I'm enjoying it just as much as the first part. And part one has a brilliant premise. It's Batman, Bruce Wayne as an older man, putting the cowl back on and returning to Gotham City. A little bit older, not as quick, not quite as strong, sore, and having to fight crime again to save the soul of Gotham and all the um, new crime sprees and this new gang, the mutants, the return of Two-Face, and part one just has a great story. Part two, I'm not. I just don't know the production history of this graphic novel, but I get the sense that part two um, is the kind of sequel that now knows is more confident that it's going to play a part in a larger story. So part one um, feels very self-contained. It's a whole world, but the story itself um, uh, feels like it could have come to a satisfying conclusion if it just ended with part one. Um, Part two um, has a very simple story as well, but it does feel more like um, the plot itself is more of um, a filler or um, a setup to a larger story. And um, part one has two main um, stories going on aside from the premise that Batman is returning to Gotham City, and it's Gotham being overrun by a mutant gang, and then also Two-Face being rehabilitated and brought back into society, um, being released from Arkham. And of course, as soon as Two-Face is released, he becomes a supervillain again, and Batman has to save the day. Part two focuses on that mutant gang, and the mutant gang has the mutant leader who is just this monstrous, big, muscle-bound, uh, inhuman creature. I'll show. There's like images. This face here. He's filed down his teeth. He wears like that Cyclops helmet, so he just has like this thin laser band for eyes. And there's two big set pieces where first Batman confronts the mutant gang at Gotham City dump, and all the mutants in Gotham are congregating. They're meeting at the dump, and there's going to be some sort of like big crowd of all the gang members, and they're going to now have military grade weapons. They've gotten a hold of some kind of arsenal, and Batman is showing up in the Batmobile. And this is a Batmobile unlike I've ever seen in the movies or the animated series. This is overblown, gigantic, ridiculous looking, really cool looking, but outrageous. And just even the size. This is the Batmobile. It's gigantic, even in comparison to a tank or something. And Batman shows up and just starts blowing up the whole the whole dump, and all the gang members are using rocket launchers and grenade launchers and bazookas. Uh, Batman's in the Batmobile, and we learn that nothing can penetrate the armor um, uh, outside of Earth. So only like an otherworldly material or force could penetrate the Batmobile. It's sort of a early nod to what I imagine is either Superman or Krypton. And they have battle. Um, Batman, in that way, um, sort of is nearly killing everybody. There's like a little mention that he's only using rubber bullets, but there's explosions, and all of the henchmen and goons are just indiscriminately um, being blasted to pieces. And then there's the gang member who yells at the Batmobile and says, like, you're a coward, get out there and fight me like a man. And Batman, against his better judgment, Alfred is in his earpiece saying, just shoot him. He's a menace to society. He's younger, he's stronger, he's more violent and savage. And of course, Batman says, I'm going to get out and fight him hand to hand. And there's a big fight. It's kind of a tie. Batman is getting beat up a little bit, but he gets some good blows in, and he nearly escapes death. He escapes, and the mutant is left pretty badly injured, but not defeated. And while this is going on, we have the introduction of a new Robin. It's a young girl, looks even younger than a teenager, named Carrie, who dresses up, just kind of puts on a Robin outfit, and is kind of doing acrobatics around the city on her own, finds out that there's this big gang meeting at the dump, and has an intersection with the Batman. And she ends up helping Batman escape and getting back into the Batmobile after this big fight. And the Batmobile has like its own medical center. It has a gyroscopic gurney. Batman takes this new Robin back to the Batcave. Alfred is warning him. And I've never been a big fan of Robin. My first impression is just confusion. It seems like a very odd choice. The costume, the type of character that Robin is, like a young, he's the boy wonder. It always seemed to conflict with Batman's image, but we now have this new Robin. The older Robins, Dick is mentioned repeatedly, and it seems to be one of those skeletons in Batman's closet. We know that he's died. From my reading, I don't think we know what happened, but he died in the line of battle. Alfred's kind of warning Bruce or Batman that he shouldn't be taking along this new young girl who's just sort of randomly popped up and is dressing up like his dead sidekick. Batman says that he's going to be training her, so I I imagine she's going to be dying, but I don't know. And then the climax or the conclusion of the Batman story is the second big battle with the mutant, the mutant gang leader. And in the second big battle, Batman makes short work of this monstrous, ghoulish figure, and he kicks his ass in this mud pit. I don't even really understand what happened, but Batman and the mutant kind of shoot out of this pipe into a mud pit surrounded by all the gang members. There's another big gang meeting. And the medium works really well compared to what I've seen, not just comic movies, but other movies where you're going to have a hero and a villain monologuing while they're fighting, or talking about their minute by minute plans of how they're going to strategize their attack and defense. Comic books, this comic book does a really great way of making it feel believable and exciting. Batman in the middle of a fight where he's about to get punched by the gang leader says, well, I'm gonna hit him right in this place on the arm, and it's not gonna hurt him, but it's gonna paralyze his arm. And then the first thing I want to do is nick him in the eye so he has blood in his eye and he won't be able to see. You see that in movies all the time where they'll have like maybe like a slow motion or a pause. It works much better in this comic book. That aspect really lends itself to the comic book medium, being able to have a mixture of artwork, dynamic panels, dialogue, exposition, narration, all kind of swirling together on the page. But there's a lot of other things happening that make me feel like this is a setup story. First, we have the media. The media is ever present in part one, but also almost even more so in part two, where we have news anchors, television interviews, we have politicians that are on camera, and it reminds me of one of the early chapters of Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne. Early on in Around the World in 80 Days, where there's the announcement that there's this big bet and what's his name is going to travel the globe on 80 days, there's a chapter that is the news buzz of this big adventure. And so we hear London all agog about this challenge and bet and who's going to win. And we just spend time listening to that buzz. And for me anyway, it made the whole rest of the story feel elevated and grander and more exciting. It also reminded me of John Dos Passos, his trilogy USA. It's like the 42nd Parallel, and I can't remember the other two, but you have these inset pieces in the novel, and they're called like newsreels, I believe, and they are just wide view news items of what's going on in the USA trilogy. And it makes the whole thing feel more epic, bigger, broader. The story that the Batman story that we read is Batman fighting a villain, kind of getting away, not really winning, fighting the villain again, and then winning. That's pretty much what's happening. the news items around it make a fairly low level storyline feel huge. And it's not just that there's these fights going on, it's all of the implications and side effects that this kind of thing would realistically result in. Having vigilantes, having crime running rampant, having the police department either being directly involved in helping a vigilante or very conveniently looking the other direction. In the news, we also have Commissioner Gordon, who is days away from retirement. We have an announcement of a new commissioner who vows to put out an immediate arrest warrant for the Batman. At the beginning of the story, we have Commissioner Gordon shooting a gang member who is young, like a kind of like a young kid that got caught up in the wrong circles, being violent and criminal, but even still, it's not a very good look when you're the police commissioner out shooting kids in the street. We have the President of the United States in this, I don't know if I can find it, but this amazing panel, series of panels. So we have all the red, white, and blue, and then the red and yellow, and we can see the President is talking to Superman. And so the President is saying, we have Batman on the loose, you need to go talk to him. You don't have to get rid of him, but you need to let him know that he needs to rein in his activity, or else there really is going to be a problem. We're back in Arkham Asylum for another kind of cameo. There was a cameo of the Joker in part 1, and now we have another cameo where I guess one of the doctors thought, well, we released Two-Face, and since we did that, we should have the Joker go on television. And the Joker, he's not even really called, we don't know it's the Joker except for the hints that we were given. He has the green hair. We're told that a lot of the people in the asylum are especially cautious or creeped out by him. And so there's like other kind of threads being pulled out that don't feel like they're unresolved. They feel like they're setups. So we know that Superman is coming. We know there's going to be a new commissioner that is going to be trying to arrest Batman. So we're going to have the Gotham police force after Batman. We have Superman that's going to have some sort of confrontation or interaction with Batman. We have a new sidekick that, knowing the fate of the previous sidekick who died working with Batman, we're going to have a new Robin that Batman is going to have to protect and guard against. The Joker that's going to be released from Arkham Asylum. So we have a really good reason for Batman to have to continue his heroic activities, and then the whole thing's going to be brought up to a climax with the higher stakes. The police is after him. Superman, the president, the whole United States doesn't want him doing these things. And we also really see the physical toll that even this low-level, very powerful supervillain has had on Batman, but he's being injured. He has internal bleeding. It seems like possible broken bones, scars, bandages. Um, he he's kind of putting on his outfit again, and he has like one of those exoskeletal uh, things around his arm that'll kind of help him move his joints. And it's exciting. It's a really fun read. At the end with the confrontation, they're in this mud pit and they're fighting, and with the monologuing, uh, Batman says like, "You think this is a mud pit?" Talking to the mutant gang leader. He goes, "You think this is a mud pit? This is an operating table, and I'm the surgeon." And it's so cool in the comic panels in a way that I'm not so sure could work in a live action adaptation, possibly in an animated film, but really works well. Um, and so those are some of my thoughts. I feel like this is the kind of story that lets you know that there's a lot more to come. And the satisfaction in part two, I feel like will heavily rely on how all of these additional threads and threats, new um, uh, climactic angles that are kind of now kind of circling around Batman, how they're all going to resolve in their own way. How what I think is Batman's gonna. Well, I don't know. I'd like to say that he's going to win the day, but this could end with him dying. I don't know. Yeah, part two of the Dark Knight Returns. Uh, I can't wait to hear what Steve has to say about what we read this week. So let me know if you're reading along. Let me know what you think about my thoughts on part two so far. Um, so leave a comment if you would like, and thank you for watching. Bye. Take care.